Hello everyone, welcome back to another chapter of English, a Pact with the Sun book and chapter 4, which is the Old Clock Shop. I'm going to tell you a story about the Old Clock Shop. Before the starting story, let's introduce with the chapter. This lesson expresses how honest and correct ways can win over any situation. With these ways, even robbers can be tackled rightly. The way Mr. Ray not only protected himself but showed the right path to the robbers as well. It conveys the message of peace and good for all. The main character in chapter 4, the old clock shop, is Ray. He is an old, debt owner of a clock shop in Salt Lake City, USA. It was late evening on Christmas Eve, and Ray was working on the clock that he had sold that day. As he was winding up for the day, two people came to his shop. The younger one, in his 20s, remained at the front door of the shop. The older one, in his 50s, approached the counter. Ray recognized that these were not shoppers. He hid his fear, smiled at the unfriendly face of the older man, and pushed a notepad and pencil towards him. The older person was surprised and said something to the younger man. Probably they had not expected the honor to be debt. Ray could see the shape of a gun in the older man's right coat pocket. He understood they had bad intention, but he remained calm. Ray sensed that he could handle the situation by giving the man money without causing any harm to anyone. He pointed to the loan board, and Ray was not a pawnbroker, but he took old clock and watches of needy people. They could return whatever money Ray had given to them and take back their clocks or watches at the same price without any interest. The older man felt easier, and Ray could spot a little shame in the man's eyes. The older man asked Ray what his wristwatch was worth. Ray asked him how much he wanted for it. Ray wanted to guess how much money this stranger needed because he knew that the wristwatch was not worth that much. With no clear answer, Ray made his judgment and gave the old man $50. They shook hands, and the old man seemed to express his thanks. Before he left, he wrote on the pad, "I will back to pick it up as soon as I can, and Merry Christmas." एक पुरानी घड़ी की दुकान, एक त्योहार और एक उत्सवों का प्रभाव की ये कहानी है। त्योहार लोगों को खुशी और उमंग से जीने की प्रेरणा देती है। ये शांति और भाईचारे का भी संदेश देता है। ये कहानी एक दुकानदार रे की है, और जो अपनी घड़ी की दुकान चलाता है वो मूक है, यानी कुछ बोल नहीं सकता। क्रिसमस का समय है और लोग अपनी खरीदारी कर रहे हैं। काफ़ी रात हो चुकी होती है और रे अपनी दुकान को बंद करने की सोचता है। तभी दरवाजे पे एक 50 साल का बूढ़ा एक 20 साल के लड़के के साथ आता है। बूढ़ा लड़के को गेट पर रखकर वो रे के पास आता है। रे बूढ़े के बर्ताव से समझ जाता है कि बूढ़ा खरीदारी करने नहीं आया, उसकी मंशा कुछ और है। रे नोटपैड पर लिखकर बूढ़े से पूछता है कि वो कैसे उसकी मदद कर सकता है। बूढ़ा रे पर हंसता है और दोनों समझ जाते हैं। तभी रे पूछता है कि क्या वो अपनी घड़ी वापस लेने के लिए आया है। रे घड़ियों की तरफ इशारा करता है। जरूरतमंदों को घड़ी के बदले रुपए भी देता था। ये लोग रुपए वापस कर अपनी घड़ी ले जाते थे रे से। बूढ़ा ये देखकर चैन की सांस लेता है और जेब से अपनी घड़ी निकालता है और पूछता है कि इसका कितना मिलेगा। रे उस बूढ़े को $50 दे देती है। बूढ़ा खुश हो जाता है और रे को क्रिसमस की बधाई देकर कहता है कि वो घड़ी को लेने वापस आएगा। तभी सभी घड़ियों की घंटियां बजने लगती है और बूढ़ा वहां से चला जाता है. Let's start the chapter. It was Christmas evening and it was the time to close shop at Salt Lake City in USA. But lights in Ray's shop were on because he was repairing a clock that he had sold. Ray, the owner of the shop, was old and a debt. After finishing his work, when Ray got up, a cold wave of air touched his neck from the front door. He turned to see the shopper who came to his shop at the last minute. But as a wise and the experienced person, he noticed that they were not shopper. He saw two men. One was young and the other was middle-aged. The younger man stopped at the door and the middle-aged came to the counter. His eyes were reflecting and cruelty of his heart. But somehow Ray wisely hid his fear and slowly pushed a notepad and a pencil toward them. The information on the notepad brought a change on man's face. He smiled and then, with his gesture pointing to his ears and shaking his head from one side to another, told the other man that the shopkeeper was dead. This gave Ray some time to look and examine the man closely. He observed the shape of the gun and his hand movement in his coat right pocket. Ray was feeling angry inside, but his wisdom asked him to cool down and be still. He asked the man writing on notepad if he could help him. With this, the man looked straight at Ray and smiled. It was a cruel smile, as if making fun of something. They understood the reason for their being in the shop and of the one man standing outside at the door. Ray was looking at them as unlucky people who were trying something for which they could repent later. Ray knew at heart that these visitors were in need of money. Ray quickly asked, writing a message if they had come to take a clock or watch. Understanding their need, Ray also pointed to the loan board filled with hanging clocks and pocket watches to tell them that he gave money as loan in exchange for people's old watches and clocks. He was not a man who gave money to people to take some security in return or on interest. Rather, Ray did all that to help needy people. It was because of his helping and kind nature. This made the older man feel easy. He looked at his watch on his wrist and asked Ray what price he could offer him for that. Ray felt that the man was a little ashamed. The watch was not of great worth, but it was special because with this Ray could turn around a bad situation and come out of it safely. Understanding the man's need and helplessness because of which he was into such a bad act, Ray asked him what was his need. The man replied to Ray, writing on the pad, that he should pay whatever was the worth of the watch. Ray went to his cash box and took out a $50 note. He handed it to the man. It made him happy. Both of them knew that the watch was not of that high price. Before leaving, the man said that he would come back to take his watch as soon as possible and wished Merry Christmas. The small story ended on the half hour with the clocks. They all struck that particular time together, witnessing the whole incident. Their musical striking bells produced a music which spread a message of hope and peace. The music was so sweet and impactful that it seemed as if even deaf ear of Ray were also able to feel it. The sweet and hope-filled message of goodwill towards others and peace on earth was felt by everyone. The message of peace and goodwill spreads everywhere as the old clocks chime Merry Christmas. At last, moral of the story. Every situation can be handled by understanding the situation calmly. By choice, nobody wants to do bad thing. It is circumstances that cause such actions. Kindness and goodwill towards fellow human beings can solve most of the problematic situation. That's all. Thank you.